Hello and welcome here on my channel. I am Nashlabs and I welcome you as well to a new cast of mine here on my new English channel. And as somebody of you know, English is not my first language, so I deeply apologize for any spelling mistakes or grammatically mistakes I do in this cast here. I'm quite nervous, and so I deeply apologize on this point. But back to the game. We start at first with the decks and the matchup. First of all, the matchup is an 1 versus 1 on the map Paddy Field. The enemies or the players are Ichkeryia and Unleashed. And therefore we now take a look on the deck of Ichkeryia. He is in team 1 and the color blue in this game. So Ichkeryia uses an Warsaw Pact mechanized deck, which is kind of an interesting choice on this map. It covers up a huge amount of infantry. We see Motschützen highly used, which is common for Warsaw Pact. We have the 90s version and the normal version, which leads to the suspicion that he tries to go into a full infantry combat or more to a spam tactic to overthrow the enemy with Motschützen, so he has there an advantage. The tank tab is solid. There are no big units there. The typical T72 M2 Wilk and the M1 Wilk, and overall the unit tab or the whole deck is more like a standard version of a mechanized. There is no big surprise there. Only the Czechoslovakian anti-tank infantry with the BVP 2 special edition, like the best BVP you can get on this type of deck, which leads towards a support role in this case. But overall, as mentioned, it's not a special deck overall. It's more a simple meta deck. Now towards Unleashed. Unleashed plays a Warsaw Pact deck as well, but not with any bonus. He plays a normal mixed version, which means he has no advantage in the tab of infantry, which could be the main problem here for him in this position, because maybe he will lose the infantry fight in the forest sector, and that could cause a huge problem for him. On the other side, he has a tank advantage. As we can see here, he has a Moderner and Twardy tank, so he can bring in his advantage in the open field towards his enemy because of his heavier tanks. Also worth to mention, in his air tab, he has the heavy bomber MiG-25. Why do I tell you about this? Because this little bomber could solve the problem of the weaker infantry and could bring Unleashed the damage to beat his enemy or to beat his specialization if he keeps his bombers alive. So this could be kind of a problem, kind of a micro fight there, and somewhat of an randomness, but could help if he uses them well. So now back to the game. After we have the theory, we go back to the practical game, and we can see on the right side, as already mentioned, in blue Ichkeryia and in red the deer Unleashed. And as we can already see, Ichkeryia uses a very mobile tactic at the beginning. He has two Mi-24D transport versions, and on the lowest street, two PT-76 Dish, some BMPs with infantry, and ASU-85M. On the higher street towards Charlie, we have the tanks, the T-72 M2 Wilk, a lot of BVPs, VZ-86, which I have already told you, and overall some units. On the side of Unleashed, we start, as we could see here, with an W3U Salamandra scout helicopter, which is kind of a very expensive startup, I have to admit. Then a Strop 2 Moderna Twardy, SPV-80s with some infantry, OT-64C with Concours and Spesalanskis, which is a solid startup, but for my taste it's a bit too expensive. We have two heavy tanks on the open field in Golf, which we have to mention here at this position. Ichkeryia fights at the place where his deck is not in the favor, because Golf, as we could see here, is a very open sector. There are some coverage, but not that many. in comparison to Bravo. Bravo is a whole forest sector. His infantry of Ichkeryia would outmanage the troops of Unleashed there in any manner. So, for my personal taste, I have thought that Ichkeryia tries to bring the battle towards Bravo and not towards Golf. But this is a kind of game which is kind of interesting because he just tries to overthrow his enemy maybe here in Golf, to beat this sector very fast in the game, to kill this opportunity of his enemy, to have there an advantage. So could be interesting if this really works for Ichkeryia. On the other side, Unleashed has now to retreat a bit because he loses a forest here, the connection forest between Golf and Holton. Yeah, I wouldn't say that's a big problem for him in this case, because his forest is very small. It's kind of a corner more or less. So for Unleashed, perfect place for a bomber. Perfect hit would cause a huge damage towards the forces of Ichkeryia in this case. So I guess that would be the perfect way to encounter this small advance here. But for my personal taste, I think it's still a possible way here for Ichkeryia to strike if he keeps the aggressive mana up, which he already showed us here. So we stay tuned on this flank. On the other flank, Bravo, as we could see, there's nothing big going on. It's more like a silent sector in this position. Both forces don't use here many of their troops, so kind of bit sad because, as already mentioned, Ichkeryia's troops are well made for the sector Bravo, and they could push towards Alpha, which would secure two sectors and gave him the point advantage, which he already has at the moment. He gets +2 points, so it's kind of a point advantage because Unleashed didn't secure the sector Echo, maybe caused of his high priced attack front made by Modernas and the Twadi. And there we can see MiG-25 RBF strikes now at the little forest, and will it hit hard? We will see. And oh, that's gonna hurt. Hard hitting there. Many of his infantry of Ichkeryia just died because of this little bomber. But on the other side, Unleashed didn't get away unharmed. His Moderna just got some anti-tank rockets from the Seria 30. Therefore, the Moderna needs to retreat right now. Otherwise, it will get maybe punished again, because now it has a fire computer reset, which means he can't really fight or can't really support, and the loss of the Moderna would hurt the Unleashed very hard. And there we can see the next Seria 30, and it's going for the Moderna, and it's hard hitting at the front. Maybe on the side, all we can say, the Moderna is dead. Yeah, was it worth the sacrifice of the Seria? I guess yes, because the Seria is or was really picked for this kind of tank, and for Unleashed it's very hard because now he misses one of his very hard tanks to support his advance to capture this little forest over there. I mean, his forces are now strong enough to capture this position, or at least gain advantage over his enemy. But overall, the loss of the Moderna is quite hard. 160 points, which are a command, are now missing on the fronts, and therefore Unleashed getting here a very hard position right now. On the other side, the Twadi proves himself a bit successfully in trying to avoid that the Czechoslovakian anti-tank troops gain here any upper hand, but as clearly seen, the troops are not that big of a problem at all. More like a problem is for Ichkeryia the loss of this little forest space here at the beginning of the sector Golf, because he put such a lot of effort to get into this little forest and now loses it because, yeah, it wasn't his sector at all. He couldn't manage to support his unit. The bomber was way too hard. But on the other side, Ichkeryia revenges his troops with the Czechoslovakian napalm bomber, strikes back and hurts the LSTR troops a bit. Not that much, but at least keep them away from occupying more space of the forest. Overall, this was a little but hard combat for both sides. They had huge losses on both sides. At all, Ichkeryia won, if you keep it that way, because Ichkeryia could made some points, which is the main goal of this whole combat, gaining points, its conquest, and therefore Unleashed used many of his weapons, support weapons, tanks, to occupy a little forest and couldn't gain any advantage from it. So on the other side, Ichkeryia made some points, brought his enemy to waste points. He lost a bit of control of the map, that's true, but on the other side he gained more control. As we can see, his SPV 50 PK on the other side at the front here, now going for the Sector Alpha, which kind of is embarrassing if you put it in that way, because Unleashed Sector Alpha is kind of a secure sector. It's close to his reinforcement point. He can really occupy the sector very fast if he wants to, but he still didn't, and that's why it's kind of embarrassing that Ichkeryia can bring his SPVs at the back of Alpha. MiG-23ML, it shut down the MiG-29. I was close to say misses its opportunity, but he took it. Good flight there from the MiG-23. Sadly, a big loss for Ichkeryia at this point, because he doesn't have that much bombers. It was one of his onlys. I guess he just got 2 bombers, 2 MiG-29. And therefore, he has to be a bit more careful when he tries to use them. On the other side, the MiG-29 did its job properly, burned down the houses where the Concourse troops were. Now there's only one left, hurt and shaken. Therefore needs some supplies, and that's one of the main problems here on the front of Unleashed. He doesn't have any supplies. Most of his units are damaged or don't have any ammo left, like the 9K 33 M2 Romp over there. No rockets left. The SPVs are damaged. Twadi still doing very solid, no problem there. LSTR are hurt, which could be devastating if you put it on the long run. They should be supplied anytime soon, otherwise it could be very hard. Now we can observe a little smoke screen laid here by Ichkeryia. Maybe he wants to get back into the sector. We can make a conclusion from it, because he sends more troops back again at the front and hold them, cover them in the perfect forest here. As we see, 2 SPV 50 PK, 1 T-72M1 Wilk, LKW Ural, which sends more scouts towards the northern flank, which is very important in this position, because he can still use this upper placement which he controls to bring in some supportive fire towards the little forest which he wants to occupy. Otherwise, his LKW just lighten up the Concourse units over there, which is kind of a problem for Unleashed, because there he missed his opportunity to do a surprise attack. Sad for him, and as well sad for 2 very expensive Concourse rockets, which could be used in very much better position. Therefore, sad for Unleashed. Not very good of a micro action there. He should placed his Concourse units on a very certain other point, more like here on the front, to cover up this huge road, which is completely open. This is the perfect place for a tank, and that's why I'm asking myself why Unleashed put his Twadi so far into the deep of the forest. I mean, of course, he still has the problem of the Seria 30, which shut down one of his Modernas, but overall he killed one, so the Twadi would survive, more likely or not, one hit. And as well as we can observe over here, SU-22 M4 Seria 30 just shut down the Salamandra, which was about to scout the command in Charlie. And overall, now Unleashed knows that the Seria 30 is now busy, or at the end in the sky, so he can use his MiG-23 to shut it down. Now we see MiG-25 RBF strikes at the soft forces here at the bait, which is clearly seen. Oh, bad. Oh, what a bummer here for Unleashed. The Seria 30 just shut down his Twadi tank, which is for Ichkeryia more than a perfect way to start his attack operations here over there. If you look closely, he now pushes with 4 squads of Motschützen at the position, and now we can see the LSTR were still hurt from the battle of capturing the forest, will now receive some bad punishment at this position. Now the VLKV T-80-30 will come too late to rescue the remaining LSTR troops. They're still hurt, they still don't have that much ammo left, so I guess it's a bit the matter of time when they get overrun by the huge amount of Motschützen over there. We can also see Motschützen normal and 90s version. Ichkeryia maybe thinks that there are still tanks in the forest left, so he just took the heavier version with to gain the more AP power. That's kind of a good decision here to combine these two forces. The normal one, the non-90 version, can pull up the fight, being the meat shield, and the 90s version can bring up the damage from far behind and the anti-tank potential. What I'm asking myself most at this situation right now is why Unleashed put his concourse units more at the front and tries not to save them. He just throws them right at the Motschützen, right at the position to their own death. Like the Me-24, which he just sent in, tried to do some damage towards the Motschützen, and therefore the Sopel on the other hand said nope, forget it, and shut them down. Now Unleashed put himself some Motschützen as well to counter the spam, which is a solid idea, a solid movement to bring him some counter spam at this position, but as we could see, 4 squads against 2 is kind of embarrassing engagement at this point, so Unleashed just tries to pull him a bit, or just buys himself a bit of a time so he can, yeah, how can I say it, to gain him some time so he can bring in some new forces, maybe to cover up his losses in this position. But overall we can see he loses his map position here, his map advantage, and therefore it will be very hard for him. Now again, MiG-25 RBF strikes back again and kills the last Motschützen normal troops, so only the 90s are still left, which is kind of a good situation in a bad situation for Ichkeryia. He loses his meat shield, which is supposed to be dead, and could rescue his heavy forces. Sadly for Unleashed overall, he loses his troops again and again. He lost his romp against a BVP, as we could see. The concourse hit him hard. On the other side, the concourse, which is left here in the building, just tries to avenge his fallen brothers in this position, but as we could see, he can't really manage it. The defense lines in Gulf are somewhat broken. The garrison is not available in any case. There are no tanks, there are no infantry left, only some Speselanskis, but they won't hold the line very long, not against this kind of support what we have here. We have a T-72 M2 Wilk and a T-72 M1 Wilk left, so overall not a very in favor of the garrison here. Same goes for the Seria 30 of Unleashed, which missed its targets. It's kind of an punishment, as you could say it, in this very hard punishment, because the Seria 30s of Ichkeryia hit the tanks and hit the units of Unleashed very hard and killed them without any big problems. And if we see the one which sacrificed himself for the Moderne, but until Unleashed used them, they just misses all their rockets and couldn't do any harm towards the tanks of Ichkeryia. Someone maybe a traitor in the ranks of Unleashed, who knows. But overall, the sector Gulf is now occupied, or is going to be occupied by Ichkeryia, and that is some interesting points over there, because as I already thought in theory, Ichkeryia wanted to take over the sector Gulf to stop, or to kill one opportunity for his enemy, so he can use his advantage to bring down or strike down his enemy at the sector Bravo. So more like he tries to go on the less painful route, because he knows the sector Gulf will be hard to capture, the enemy has the better tanks, the enemy has the better support weaponry, and I have only infantry to spam. But now we could see his tactic worked. He gained the upper hand in sector Gulf, and now is in the opportunity to even go further and strike back at Echo, which would be a devastating strike here for Unleashed if Ichkeryia can fully unleash them on his sector. So now Unleashed has to do a fast action, has to react very fastly, otherwise I would see for him only pain in this position. Seria 30 again tries to hunt down the Mi-35, which got just shut down by the Strop, but the Strop won't save itself against the 2 Motschützen, which are now on the way to hunt this one down. On the other hand, the only unit which are trying to stop this little troop of Motschützen here are the Spezialaufklärer troop, which are going to flank them a bit, but I don't guess they will last any longer, because if we can see, the Motschützen has the elite rank, which gave them a huge precision bonus on accuracy, which also leads that they are more devastating against infantry. And there we have the SPV 50 PK, which also have the advantage of their ranking bonus, and therefore they can hit again. But in this position they didn't do any harm. Overall, the command is now spotted, and Ichkeryia has an eye on it, which means his mortar vehicle, which gave him the smoke earlier on, can now bring in some fire on the echo position, which also leads that he can do some more damage and gain some more points. But well, some more points. And if we go back to the points, we can remember Ichkeryia had an advantage of points around about 86, and Unleashed just came up again and had saved some points for himself. 80 points is it right now, so the gap between these two are not that big as it was at the beginning of the game. So we can see Unleashed cared himself for the sectors a bit more than before. As we also can see here, he fixed up his flank with a Mochitsen troop and a Snaska scout vehicle. So he's just trying to avoid some flanking again there, as 2 SPV 50 PK once sneaked there. So as we can see, Unleashed tries now to fix up his mistake he did in Golf by doing some more action in Bravo, and now his Syria 30 just hit once the heavier Wilk. Oh, are the two the same? Oh, it's the same. 270 oh, camera, for fuck's sake. Why? I just want to camera on the T-72 there. Okay. What I wanted to say, the one they are the same model over there, and one just got hidden very hardly. I guess what's flanking shot. Otherwise, I couldn't explain me the damage here. And so Ichkeryia just had very much luck in this position. Could be a critical hit in the dead of the T-72 M2 Wilk, which saves him a bit of a potential again to occupy the sector Bravo, which is he going to do anyway any soon, because if we look at his forces here, we have 2 Mochitsen again, 3 Mochitsen, some ZSU 57-2, which are very devastating when it comes towards infantry combat. If we look at the info data, we have an HE power of 2 for their main guns, because of their caliber 57mm rounds, which are quite big, and therefore they can hit very hard against the infantry. On the other side, Unleashed has LSTR 40 troops back there, which Vampire rockets, RPGs, which leads towards a very safe kill against the ZSU. So if they hit hard, both sides. So it can be kind of a risky game over there, and also a bit spiced up when it comes to the hitting. So now we have the first engagement over there, the first infantry combat between Mochitsen and 90. It's the ZSU, as I mentioned, now supports them. Yeah, especially as we could see, the morale of the troops are kind of down. Don't have that much left of the forces anyway. So it's kind of not the situation which Unleashed needs right now, because he just needs to trade especially perfect here, and he needs to trade as good as he can, because as long he fights in the sector Bravo, he is still in the disadvantage in comparison to his enemy, because Ichkeryia, as we already know, has the infantry advantage. He can spam way more. He has the rank bonus, he has the weapon bonus, he has all bonuses you can imagine for this kind of combat. And as we could already seen here, one mismove and this will cause into a destruction of the forces of Unleashed. So he has now to be very, very safe in his movements right here. Otherwise, I wouldn't see any big possibilities for his win in this game anymore. Again, new Mochitsen arrive at the position. What can I say? I mean, otherwise, there's a big kind of a problem for Unleashed if he doesn't do any harm here, or didn't push here any further, because if he let his enemy more time, and the time which Ichkeryia has about 5 minutes, then yeah, Ichkeryia will just increase his infantry forces and overrun him over the time. So Unleashed has to do any action. He has to bring Ichkeryia some losses, so, otherwise he will just getting overrun, and that's not what I guess he really wants. He wants to obtain the win here, and at the moment he has some more points than Ichkeryia, so there's still kind of an optimism over there. If he, as already mentioned, can hold the Sector Bravo, then he can, yeah, accept the loss of Golf anyways. So kind of still a big play here possible for Unleashed. So we still stay tuned what will happen here, because overall Ichkeryia couldn't bring his advantage over Bravo. He also tried with his unit, but he still couldn't bring the overmatch, and therefore Unleashed holds the line very effective here. And I mean, of course, Ichkeryia can spam Mode Schützen overall, but this may cause problems for him, because only Mode Schützen is not the way to go. He still needs support units, he still needs units to round the whole thing up, because then Unleashed can counter them very effectively if he comes towards the position. He still has MiG-25 RBF bombers in his bag, so there's still the possibility to just kill all the infantry in one run. So Unleashed has to build dynamic forces over here, but he also needs to keep up his spam of units, otherwise he won't get this superior hand over his enemy in this position. And now we can see here combat between normal Mode Schützen and 90s again. In this case, Ichkeryia did do a very big of a misplay over there. He should have brought his Mode Schützen, which he just led against the BMP, should have brought them with the single troop over there, so they had shot the double troops of Unleashed here in the side, in the flank, and maybe brought their morale a bit further. So yeah, kind of a little misplay over there, but not that of a big one, because now Ichkeryia has 3 squads of Mode Schützen in the sector. The next 2 of Unleashed are still on the way, so it's kind of 4 against 3, but still the support units of Ichkeryia are very strong here. He has still in the background and ZSU 57-2, KBZ T-72 as well, as again more ASU 85, and again a next troop of Mode Schützen which are on the way. So could be kind of a Mexican standoff over there. So still interesting, still somewhat tuned up what's going on here. Especially Ichkeryia's move to decide that he captures the forest between of the road. I mean, it's a kind of a dense forest, very small place, like the forest between Golf and Hotel, which we had over there. So still a very favorable bomber run. If Unleashed turn his bombers at the right position over Alpha and bring them into a somewhat 90-degree turn, he could bring a devastating bombing run on his enemies. So it could be still hard for Ichkeryia to gain here the upper hand. But as we can observe here, it's going. It's still more like a tie. It's not really this. It's not really sure who's getting here the more better combat. I don't think. I think Ichkeryia has still a MiG-29 left with Napalm, so this opportunity is still there. And as it's looking like, Unleashed loses 2 troops of Mode Schützen right now against 4, which are 2 in the background. That's not a good situation over there for Unleashed. He loses way too many troops. He has to focus more and concentrate fire on certain objects, but as we can observe, more of his units are just getting killed over there. But as well as the units of Ichkeryia, which getting shot every time as well. So it's not clearly who wins this combat, but at the moment Unleashed keeps killing the troops of Ichkeryia and keep them out of the forest. The Granatomate AGS-17 might brought him the bigger advantage over here. As well, Granatomate is still a broken unit in my opinion, very strong and devastating against infantry, so maybe this is the unit Unleashed needed to obtain the superiority of this sector, as well as the OT-62 Vitra 2, which are very good close support vehicle, especially against BMP-1s because of their autocannon. As we can see, 2 HP power and solid accuracy, so it's okay to be honest in this position. And yeah, Unleashed won this kind of combat. He lost very much of his Motschützen, which is kind of a setback for him as well. I mean, of course he has some in reserve, but not that many left. And as we can see in his reinforcements, there are no more Schützen left. I guess the last 3 are getting to their destiny over there. So it's... I don't know. Is this it's a good decision from Unleashed over there. But he still needs to keep his enemy out of Bravo overall. Otherwise, he wouldn't... otherwise, Ichkeryia would gain points from Bravo, and Unleashed will lose the game. So he has to obtain his superiority over the sector Bravo. Otherwise, it's going to hurt for him. MiG-25, sadly wasted in my opinion. Oh, no, he's dead. What a bummer. This certain little bomber was very, very, very important towards Unleashed Force, because this little bomber just kept the infantry, yeah, how can I say, in cage, not that strong because of the bombs, and therefore the last bomber, I guess, is now gone, so he has no opportunity to use them again. The only supportive fire he has is from his small arty guns here, from the 2 S1 Cara Fiat. I still don't know why he uses them overall. I'm not a big fan of 6 HE power artillery overall, so I don't know why, but he uses them, he has a plan with it, and overall they're doing their job, I guess. I mean, supportive fire is always nice to have, and they're not that expensive like modern high-tech artillery pieces, so I guess it's okay over there, but still not very convenient about this little piece of military armament over there. Yeah, when it comes to military armament, at the moment Unleashed has somewhat, yeah, more like a broken material crisis here. Most of his units have no armor left, no ammo left or no armor left. As we could observe here, the one T-72 M1 Wilk just exploded because of the flanking shot of his bigger brother, with bigger enemy brother. And therefore Unleashed should be paying more attention towards his lost flank at Golf. And when it comes to Golf, the bigger brother is now dead, and Ichkeryia occupied the sector and now gains points from it, which leads towards that the advantage Unleashed had melts away, and therefore he has no advantage left, and he needs to do some pressure over Bravo and to keep or to secure this sector in any time. Otherwise Ichkeryia gains more points than him, and he has to do an action which leads towards an attack towards Charlie, which is quite impossible, or to do a bigger attack on Golf, which would be a very, very high risk, and I don't think he would win this situation. But overall, his whole movements are now very, very, very strict and very, very yeah, linear, because he just can't do any experiments right now. He has to do any action, otherwise he will lose his opportunities and his possibilities. And as we can see here now, the fully might of mechanized gameplay strikes back again. The whole Motschützen army over there. How many troops do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. About 10 whole squads of Motschützen are now against the little ones who are left from Unleashed, and therefore he will just getting overrun. This is just for him a devastating strike back. He won't get any big success from this little action he tried here. At least he tried, and therefore he should be awarded. I mean, in his situation he couldn't do anything else, because the whole map is getting, well, was shut down by Ichkeryia, which is good for him. He did very well in this case, and as I said, theoretically I think this was his whole strategy about. He tried to secure Golf, to keep this sector shut, to bring his enemy into a position where he just can't win anyways, and that's where Ichkeryia just had the upper hand, just can push on his mechanized troops. strong anti-tank anti-tank RPG. Therefore, they are still they're really hitting hard in this position. Hitting hard is again the PT91 Twadi as well, but as you can guess, this is no sector for him. He just can't maneuver, he just can't bring his strength over here. He just is at the very wrong point. He just has no advantage. It's for him wrong position. I mean, he's still very viable and he can do some damage. He will hold a bit of the line, but not that very much. And I think it's kind of a misplay over here, more overreacted. He should have bought some more lighter tanks like the T-72 M1, or if he had it, the normal T-72 would have brought him some help over there. And as we could see here, the MiG-25 RBF would be so gold at this position. It would help him here in the whole situation, a good bombing run, and all of the units would be dead. But yeah, they're still missing now, and gun, and therefore Unleashed yeah, has to fight against this very much horde of Motschützen, which are now starting to overrun him in this position, which is kind of embarrassing for the Twadi, getting shot by the BMP-1. But yeah, as mentioned, there is nothing he can do. There are just too many. The artillery cannons at the back could help still, if they manage to fight back, or if they manage to shoot back right now. But as I see, the target is not the Motschützen army. It's more like trying to hunt down the command, like an old habit which never dies. Trying to snipe down the command. Yeah, the shot gets back there. Oh boy. I mean, he could do some major damage towards this huge amount of infantry, but I guess he decided to try to hunt down the command. Of course, if this would be successful, the command would be dead. Ichkeryia had to move his command backwards to gain the sector back, the reinforcement, and to send a new command, but won't change the fact that Unleashed just lost his sector here against this horde of Motschützen. A huge armada. I mean, it's just a human wave that worked his way through this position. And what else is there to say? I mean, this huge forces just killed the forest. Good play on the Ichkeryia there. Just brought all of his possibilities out and played to his advantage. I mean, forest combat is for a mechanized player the home overall. He can just throw in units, and that's what we saw today over here. But overall, I have to give out some props to Ichkeryia. I mean, he just did the right thing with his deck. He just took the right strategy, overthrow Golf at the right position at the right moment at the game, so he has this major problem out of his eyes and uses his forces to go on Bravo and strike there very hard to kill his enemy. And therefore Unleashed surrenders. I mean, both played very good. As we can see here, kills and losses are kind of equal. 2,945 to 3,050. Even Ichkeryia lost more than he killed. I mean, they're very close overall, so it doesn't have to say anything, but I guess you get the message. Unleashed did play very good. He tried to maneuver and tried to get the mechanized player to do some big mistakes, but he couldn't, and therefore Ichkeryia had the upper hand until since he captured the sector Golf, because then he had already the advantage and Unleashed couldn't brought his heavy tanks to any action. Overall, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I still apologize for many of my spelling mistakes I made, and I hope you like my German accent overall. And therefore, I wish you a good day. Hoping to see you soon again in my next video, and see you. I hope you have a good day.